Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Rick Hinton with Portal Solutions, and we've got a interesting and lively webinar scheduled for today, the Kaleidoscope of Social Features. What are they, and how do we use them? So joining us today is Adam Levinson. He's a senior consultant here at Portal Solutions. And Adam is a seasoned industry speaker, business strategist, SharePoint advocate, and information architect, as well as an active member of the SharePoint community here in Washington, D.C. So Adam also acts as a virtual technology specialist for Microsoft, and we're glad you could join us this morning to talk about social and all of the ins and outs, and hopefully this will be a thought-provoking and interesting session. Just a couple of housekeeping items. You'll see on your GoToWebinar browser on the lower right-hand corner, there's a box for questions. So please feel free to post questions, and we'll leave some time at the tail end to gather them up and answer them. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Adam.
Thanks a lot, Rick, and welcome everybody on a nice fall day. And actually, I'll let Rick and our other coworker here know that it is my birthday, so I did volunteer to do this on my birthday.
We can spare you the singing.
So why a kaleidoscope? Well, why a kaleidoscope? Well, a kaleidoscope because we know in all of these talk about social that there are so many different options, and they come really close together, and it's hard to tell what's what. And that's what we're here to do today. We're here to look at a wide variety of features and identify what they're used for. So let's set the expectations here. What are we discussing here? Well, you know, what we want to do is make it clear of how to access and make use of tacit and explicit knowledge. And that's, you know, the knowledge that's just stuck in someone's head. Oh, go call Bob. He knows what to do. Or the explicit knowledge that you've written down in SOPs, policies, and what have you that you can search and find more easily. And if we harness these things, we'll be able to improve the speed and agility, so the access to that knowledge and also what you're able to do with it throughout your organization. And, you know, with a strong plan, you're able to put your people in control of how they use these features and tools to gain knowledge. And actually, in the long run, we hope to minimize the interruptions that they'll have, because they'll know exactly when and why to use these individual features. So what is social? Well, first of all, we have collaboration. And I've been working with SharePoint and other collaboration tools since 2007, so it's a really broad topic. Actually, if you talk to Microsoft, collaboration is the wide variety of features going from Skype and using the phone all the way to systems like SharePoint that we're used to. There was an interesting article, too. Companies who do phone hardware are now making smartphones that are enabling collaboration. So it's a very broad term. And social is usually one little piece of that. That's a feature set that's smaller than the broad collaboration. But you know what? It's nice that it's called something different, and yes, it enables us to communicate a little bit faster. But really, what are we talking about? I like to look at it, and I was inspired by Christian Buckley prior to, and then especially during our webinar with him about Yammer, to think of this as all part of collaboration. And structured collaboration is what typically we're deploying in SharePoint: document management, project teams, organized chaos for collaboration amongst a lot of different people. And then, instead of calling it social, we have unstructured collaboration. So the goals for each of them are to enhance communication, to make work better, and have us be able to communicate and understand each other and get work done faster. And yes, for all of us out there, at a lower cost would be great too. So how do we compare these features? What we're going to be doing is comparing a lot of different features, and a focus is going to be definitely given to the unstructured collaboration, because that's what you're here for today. What are we going to look at? Well, first we're going to look at the audience for these features. We're going to say, is this based on an individual basis, one-to-one relationship, one-to-many? Is it for a team to be sharing and collaborating on? Or is the knowledge meant for the entire enterprise? The next thing we'll look at is the actual type of content. So temporary, is this a throwaway? Rick, where are you today? Are you in the office? No. Okay. Is this a record? We made a decision that based on this value, we are going to spend X. And you'll need to record that. So this is a wide variety of items that we will look at, all of these features. Let's start with instant messaging. Instant messaging is really a one-to-one relationship where you're asking those quick questions and getting quick answers. This has really been around for a long time. AOL, I don't want to admit that it's 20, 25 years that it's been around and people have been connecting to each other on a personal and on a business level. Yahoo closely behind. And then, of course, now the pervasiveness of Link across different organizations. This information does not need to be recorded, but you actually can if you want to. And also, one of the benefits that instant messaging currently provides is, well, you reduce your email box, right? You also have the ability to be instantaneously responsive. Ask a question, get an answer, no waiting. You also could type a message, expect an answer, and not get any. Now, a lot of these systems, if they're tied into email too, they'll leave you a message, but then that defeats the purpose of reducing your email box. So let's go on to email. So emailing, again, is mostly one-to-many or one-to-one. It's meant for small groups. Now, yes, I realize we all email a lot of people in that CC, or hopefully not too much, the VCC, and you can get a lot of people in the conversation, but as we also all know, that's where email breaks down. Is if you get too many people responding at too many things at too many times, it's hard to follow what the definitive answer was. Again, this is something that's been around for a very long time. We have Lotus Notes, and no, I didn't do a screen capture of an actual Telnet screen, but I could have done that from way back from the 70s. But Lotus Notes is a powerful tool that brought email to the corporate environment, the modern version of Outlook, and of course Google and Gmail, bringing Gmail to the masses and access for everyone online. So the problem with email is on the content, it might be, well, I'm still asking Rick, where is he? So it's throwaway content. It might be a decision that needs to be recorded. But where do I save that? Am I going to save it in Outlook? Am I going to save it on my hard drive? What am I going to do? What are the rules? At the same time, what's the benefit? Now, we have to admit that we use email a lot. So email is the benefit, the central place for all of our information. So we can find it. That's a good thing about it, but if you're not already shaking your head, it's hard to find something, even though it is a central point for all of your information. The next feature we want to go into, well, actually, because we're going to spend so much time on it, we're not going to talk about social just yet. We'll break that out in a whole separate conversation. So let's skip on to online storage or document sync. Here you have many-to-many, and you have outside of the organization, across the internet. And what's great about the online storage is it's about having a copy on your desktop also, so you always have access to the information. You also have team sites. And these are, again, that many-to-many relationship where you could be inside your organization, or you could be outside on the extranet. Here, it's not just based around documents like online storage, but you're able to have tasks, tracking, lists, contact information for individual people. And I'm showing our extranet here, but of course there are many systems that are able to provide these features. What these sites are good for is being able to create the knowledge and answering questions not immediately, but when they're asked, and then being able to go back, hey, what did we do on this project that we don't want to do on the next project? Going down the spectrum again, we have our intranets. And so intranets were really interesting because they're some of the first websites out on the internet, and they were created to provide information. And really what I like to say about an intranet is that it is few to many, because there's probably a small group of people that are responsible for maintaining that intranet, and then there are many people reading it. So this really, here are some views of intranet, is the official point of view. It's where you go for corporate answers. These are more records and references than they are the temporary items that we discussed in instant messaging, in email, even in the team sites and online storage. But the good news about an intranet is you should have one place to look for all of that information. On the bottom of this spectrum, we have document and record management. And here it's sort of the opposite of an intranet. Here we have a many to few. So we have everybody participating in document and records management. And then we have in the future people looking at it, maybe for regulatory purposes. It has to be treated in a specific way. Again, central location if you're talking about record management so that you secure your business knowledge. You obviously can see from our friend here, frustration with all of that paper, and now frustration with all of that digital documentation. But that's the bottom of the spectrum here. You can see that these different areas have different tools that are associated with them, or maybe one or two tools that can go across different areas of the feature set. So now, let's dive a little bit deeper into social and unstructured. First, I want to take the time and say thank you for submitting your questions. We have ones coming in already, and we will definitely answer those at the end, so keep them coming. So here we have social and unstructured. So what could be the value here? Well, the object could be to minimize the noise and provide quality over quantity of information. We also, want to understand the proper context. What is it in this situation that we're talking about? Interesting thing is, as mentioned before, if you have a strong unstructured collaboration social strategy, you actually can put users in control of their information so that they can more easily fine-tune what they see, how they see it, and when they have access to it. Email is a good starting point, but for evolutionary, this is where we're coming into unstructured and social type of instant gratification communication. So let's go into these details and break it down. First, we have microblogging or newsfeed. And whether this is 142 characters or as many as 500, this is probably the main feature that people are thinking about when they say social. First of all, like we discussed in the other features, a newsfeed or a microblog usually is one person putting their point of view out and multiple people being able to respond to it. Another thing here is that you're able to go back and search for this knowledge. So conversations that start casually, again, taken out of the email chain, in context of what you're doing, become knowledge in the future. When you think about microblogging or newsfeed, a lot of people will jump and say, oh, Twitter and Facebook. And those really were the start of this evolution. And slowly, enterprise systems have caught up to the capabilities that those commercial tools have. Now, in SharePoint 2013, you have a newsfeed. You have the ability to have that conversation in context. You have great social enterprise tools that their main purpose is to be the quote-unquote Facebook of the enterprise, like Tibber, like Yammer. And we spent a whole webinar talking about Yammer versus SharePoint. But just talking about the newsfeed here, it's many different flavors of the same thing. And the key part about the success of a newsfeed is knowing how to use it, and that these conversations are specific and usable to the group that it wants to collaborate using this type of tool. Again, it's turning that conversation into knowledge in the future because you can follow the whole string in a central location and it can be grouped with other information. Next, there's an oldie but a goodie, a discussion board. So discussion boards are a little bit different than news feeds because they're actually more about having a few people being able to add information and other people being able to view it and then comment and feedback. It's not as instantaneous as the news feed, and it's usually used for FAQs, controlled topics, guest questions. You might also use the term a forum for this, where you're doing support. And that's one place where I still heavily use a discussion board, is if we're providing support or a governance site and you have questions and you have answers. And so there is, in a discussion board, a long chain of responses that you can visually look through, you can search through. There's an ability for interaction, but not as heavy as the news feed. So again, this is more going towards that team audience and being able to reference it later. You'll also see in the bottom photo here that SharePoint 2013 has made an effort to make the discussion board a little more interesting by adding a visual layer to be able to sort and filter on. Now let's move to the blog, our famous blog. So a blog is really interesting because it is one too many. And so a blog, someone has an opinion, someone says something interesting about a technology, and a lot of people view it and read it. So different than a news feed, because a news feed is highly interactive and highly responsive. A discussion board is partially interactive and partially responsive. And a blog, really, once the person posts it out, probably not going to get that many more comments from the original author on that topic. And you might get some comments. But in the corporate world, blogs are usually for a single perspective, informational reason. Examples of a blog, we start with personal. And so here you have a specific perspective on a topic like a technology. Then you can go all the way up to blogs that are in different periodicals on the web. Again, an author's perspective on a topic, not the same as a full article, maybe a little more opinion than a neutral news article. And finally, you have corporate blogs that are usually public-facing and informational, telling you about the culture and the knowledge base of that organization. So again, a blog is one-to-many, limited ability for interaction. Yes, you can make comments, but only the most devout authors are going to have the ability to respond to those comments in a quick and timely manner. The next, we have a wiki. And sometimes this isn't put into that social category. And that's really a shame, because this is one of those technologies that's really many-to-many. This is giving people the power to build and create their own content, and at the same time creating and capturing knowledge. So if you don't know, wiki came from the phrase easy in Hawaiian, and so it is meant to be an easy place to just press an edit button and go in and type in information, and then allows interaction because the next person can come in and help you out and update and correct that content. Wikis also in the back end have automatic version control, so you can see as the content has evolved. If we're talking about wiki, of course we have to talk about Wikipedia. It's the best one out there. But there are hundreds of thousands of other wikis that are based around specific topics. Here's a quick example of our internal wiki that we've set up around intranet and setting up a public website. So here, our experts can go in, create an outline of best practices, and as we learn new things and as technologies change, we can add and edit those best practices and the information gained through experience. So a wiki is a very, very powerful tool and really is within social because it's a specific group of people but allows access from the outside. Unlike a blog where it's one perspective, you can get a full team's perspective or more. Then, and compared to a discussion board, which has limitations to how it's organized, a wiki can be organized in many fashions and have multiple links and multiple directions to where it can go. And again, the newsfeed, which is just interactive conversation. The final group in the spectrum of social feature is a group or a community. I've also heard Jive uses the term an important place. So this is really cool. It's an important place. So what's fun about a group or community, and this is what tools, enterprise social tools are really set up around, is that it can be based around a specific function of your organization. Oh, we have the HR community. It is a team talking to the rest of the team and also to the enterprise at the same time. So here we have the SP-YAM group. Yes, this is a very scary thought for a bunch of SharePoint people to be having their own group. And I believe there are a few thousand of us that use this. And we talk about different topics, whether it's SharePoint Saturday that I'm part of, or it's SharePoint 2013, or it's specific codes that are being used. Here, you're able to see a stream of news feeds within the context of a group. And in this specific example, it's SharePoint 2013. So what's good about this is if I haven't been able to check the news feed for a while, the system will know and will tell me these are different conversations that I have not been able to read. And I'll be able to go back in time and read those different conversations, see what people are saying, ask questions. I can even use search within this group to be able to access more specific information and see if someone already has the question or comment that I would like to make. That will save me time because I don't have to ask it. Another thing about the community and what a lot of these social features do is they connect you to the people in the community. And I have to say, that's why I really like this phrase of community, because it's building a group of people to create that community. And you can see in the Yammer example and our internal example, we have the pictures of individuals. Yes, we know everybody, but it's still good to have that reminder of who's working alongside you. And in larger organizations that we've worked with, they really love being able to see the pictures of people's faces halfway around the world that they never actually have a direct conversation with. They're only interacting through these different feeds. Now, in a group and community, you have a wide variety because some could be alongside a team site, and you could have not only these social features, but you could also have documents, you can also have task lists, and the other capabilities that a lot of systems now provide. Most times, these communities support work, but you're not exactly doing work in them. So an example at a biopharmaceutical company I'm working with right now is there's a community based around automation tools. And so there's a lot of conversation about using the tool, actually scheduling the tool itself, and learning from each other about best ways to take advantage of the reports that it provides. So it's not directly of how you do work, but how to do work better. And I believe this is a very strong and powerful tool. So next, we want to take all of this information that we've seen and talk about what it looks like inside your company now. And so if you remember how we're going to gauge these different feature sets, we said it was by type of content that ranged from record to temporary, or temporary to record. We said an audience that goes from the individual to the enterprise. And so now we're going to put these tools as they relate to these two axes. So let's start with instant message. So unsurprisingly, instant message is in the top of these two axes. If you remember from a few minutes ago, temporary pieces of information, mostly for the individual going towards the team. Then its big brother is email. Oh, wait, does this look familiar for you? I would tell you to raise your hand, but you might be looked at funny by your peers sitting around you. Does this look familiar? Yes, it does here. We use email for everything. That might not be the best way to run the company, although it is a really great tool for most things, just not the best. So let's talk about inside your company soon. So here's what we have with where email could fit. It could be used for those individual conversations and team conversations. Okay, sprinkle in some of those announcements, but really you could use your intranet better nowadays for those corporate announcements than solely in email. Then, not broken out into the different pieces that we saw before, we have the social spectrum. And so here within this, you go from the news feed that is most closely related to instant message and email all the way to the community site, which is most closely related to the next level, which is online storage and team site and extranet. So if you wanted me to make this as clear as could be with no overlapping and no confusion about the technologies, I'm sorry, I'm not capable of doing that. It's just not true. But hopefully what viewing the information this way will do is show you how you can apply the different features within your organization and how to look at them differently and harness them for their strengths and not just use them because they're there, which we do all the time. Moving on next, we have the intranet, which is more enterprise-wide and team. And then finally, we have document and record management. I have to say, you all know that I primarily work with SharePoint. And I think looking at this spectrum, it's kind of amazing how many different pieces that it can actually perform within the spectrum. And I think it's an advantage that it does do document and record management. Again, I can hear through the muted phone lines shaking of heads. No, it's not the best at any one thing, but especially for our medium-sized companies, man, you can do a lot of customization with it to make it good for you and not have to use other tools. But while that's said, there's some best-of-breed tools in every single level of this spectrum. And you can choose to interact and to interchange whatever tool best fits your organization. Also, another thing that I want to talk about is your knowledge again. We brought that up as a point in the beginning of what you get out of this. So let's take a look at this little square and think about what's the knowledge that is in Bob's head that when he wins the lottery, you won't have in your organization anymore. It's a lot. And sorry to all you Bobs out there, that's my favorite name. There's a lot in there. And really trying to go back and find it in email is fairly hard. Instant Messenger probably backs its information up into email, not very much more successful. And here's where the power of the social features come in, because you're getting the same experience as this instant message, the same experience as email, and you're able to provide a base of knowledge for the future. Let's also take a second to look at the technology foundation that makes all of these different tools work. And this really is a presentation in and of itself, but I wanted to make sure that we covered it a little bit. So things that you can't overlook, especially if you're like some of our clients and you're using a wide range of tools, is how are people authenticating into your system? Are they using your corporate email address / identity? Are they using external ones? How are you doing that? Are you storing them in a database and making up your own? As we know, that's a management headache. Then the personal profile. So who are you? Is that information stored in one place, in multiple places? Where's my picture? I really like pictures. I'm a very visual person. So if I go into my team site and I see a picture, and then I go into my social site and I don't see a picture, I'm going to be confused. And it would be great with a personal profile if you have the same picture in the same place and it's controlled with the same method. So that's why I think this is really important. And another piece is over to the right a little bit, search. Search is vastly important to be able to actually reach out and grab this knowledge. And there are a lot of search tools now, and they're built into these different systems, that you are able to, in one place, search across from records management all the way up, even into email, but most likely into those social conversations. I think that's something you really want to think about, because it's great to capture the information, but how do you actually pull it out? It can be through search. It could be, if you have some great developers, you can do some customization. So with that said, let's take a look and close the presentation out before we get to questions with a few of the initial questions. So how does this unstructured collaboration fit within my organization? Well, what you want to do is you want to take a look at your culture. Are there people already using these tools? Even if they haven't been allowed to, are they using them? Why are they using them? Are those tools that are worth reviewing for your use in the organization? I have to say, when I go on site, the first question I ask is, what does your intranet look like? And this is a real telltale sign of what your culture and your ability to update and support social features and unstructured collaboration might be. Because there are a lot of great intranets out there, and there aren't as many great intranet teams. And I'm obviously not talking about people. Okay, nobody logged off as I said that. But what I mean is the commitment that there are groups of people who are dedicated to maintaining that intranet. Also, there are some that are still built on tools from 2003, and the value hasn't been there to update it and make it more intertwined with everyday working of your organization. So that's a little sneak peek, but I think that it is fairly telling about the culture. Not always accurate, but a telltale sign of what is to come and how to apply these different solutions. Another thing is, what is a specific need? Just like collaboration almost 10 years ago, the biggest adopters were groups that had specific needs to use the tool. And you'll probably already see people who are clamoring for social or using it, or just there are different levels of usage of your structured collaboration right now. So a major takeaway here is this is how to best start the implementation of, well, actually structured or unstructured collaboration within your organization. Start small with a focused team. And so what do I mean by that? I want to give you probably the #1 example of unstructured working alongside different applications and being almost immediately adopted. And the reason it's adopted is because it's solving the need for team communication. And that example, there was a hint on this side, are the sales teams. Whether you're using Salesforce, Dynamics CRM, or multitude of other content management systems, the integration of Chatter, Yammer, other enterprise tools has been quickly adopted because sales teams always have the same mission, whether it's individual or corporate. Let's just say it's corporate mission, to get more sales, to be more efficient with their time, to make more revenue. And they really want access to people to help them. Notice I said to people. So this way, they don't only have to know, well, I'm in Toledo, and Rick has been working here for 30 years, so I can go ask Rick. Now, if they're working in San Diego or Tampa, they have almost the same exact access to the people all across the company. So within the context of selling to a specific client, they can send a message, and they can ask for experience with that. And not only Rick can give an answer, but anyone who might have insight into that specific problem can. So now that salesperson has a document where he or she was going to create it before. They have an answer or an approach to better speak to that vice president and close the sale. These implementations light up like wildfire. And again, that's because it's a specific need to solve a specific problem, and the tools are very usable for that. Now next, how does this fit into your overall business needs? Well, so do you have a strategic communication and mobility plan? What are your goals? I didn't say information technology goals. I said corporate goals for your organization. What are people asking for? And then now, hopefully, that you have a view of the spectrum and an understanding of how it supports collaboration. We go from a kaleidoscope to a prism and divide those different colors out so you can see them. I hope that metaphor worked, by the way. And you can say, hey, for this group here, this is a tool that will probably work for them. And again, you can use many or you can use a few. And now you have a story of why the specific tool will work best. Another consideration that we run across all the time working with financial biopharmaceutical is what regulations do you have to follow? There are organizations that just purely don't allow IM because they're too worried about information being communicated improperly. There are companies that embrace social because it's that same instant messenger feeling, but guess what? It's recorded. It's stored within a database. And finally, along those same messages is how much do you want access to this long-term knowledge? So you're identifying what your strategy is, and so it goes back to if you want to be more agile as an organization, if you want to be able to satisfy some of your staff. And now, by applying a search mechanism or built-in tools within some of these features, you can have long-term access to the knowledge instead of really being just lost in email. So finally, let's talk about the piggy bank. What is the real return on investment? And there have been long conversations about this. And one person at Chat ESN has a conversation about once a week. The answers are different all of the time. But remember, some of the concerns are avoiding constant distraction. But what happens here is now we can apply technologies that are much more adaptive to the changing way people work, that they will know how and when to use what tool for what. And again, I mentioned in the previous slide, it will turn into knowledge. And what was in Bob's head is now in the digital universe, so it can be reused at a later time. So what do we stand to gain here? I really like this one. Happy employees mean employee retention. I've seen studies that have said it costs 200% to hire a new person, 200% of their salary. Maybe it's over the first year. Okay, I don't remember the study too well. But it's a lot of money, and we all know that. The time to do interviews, you break off your core job to find a new person, to train them up to your organizational culture. Happy employees. There are dollars that can be associated with that. Next, increased ideation and finding answers. Now this is really interesting. So are you telling me that people will think more? Well, kind of. Are they going to invent something every day? Maybe not. But with social features, you're exposing staff members to new ideas that seem common to someone else, but they didn't think of yet, that could make your entire organization increasingly more productive. Also here, we've been talking a lot about search, but we don't just want to search, we want to actually find the answers. And if we can create an environment where answers are found, then we can not only measure productivity year over year, but we can measure it in minutes. You can see the light bulbs going off in people's heads. You can see work and new projects developing and moving forward at a much rapid pace than in the past, because they have these tools at their fingertips. And an easy one that these features allow is, well, an increase in remote working. Yes, I know if you're Yahoo, this might not be a good thing. But in most cases, with remote working, you reduce travel, you reduce overall costs and overhead. So there's a really easy way to pinpoint return on investment. With all that said, we're not just making this up. One study, and you might have seen this before in our other webinar, but it's got such good supporting information, shows that social technologies make their job more enjoyable. We're talking about that happy employee. They say it's more productive. Oh, we didn't put numbers around that, but you could argue productivity increase makes the company more profitable. Helps get done work faster? That's pretty good. More profitable again. And once you start using these tools, people want to use more. And another major takeaway I'll say here is, you heard me talk about it during the intranet. This takes a team to understand what's going on in your organization and being able to meld technology with the way people want to work and the business needs. Just because you implement one of these tools does not mean you will get these results. You might, from a small team, a small group of users who understand and quote-unquote get it, get news feeds, get wikis, get blogs instantaneously. But there has to be education. And we found that discussing the spectrum of different features has really helped widen the group of people that are successful with these unstructured and structured collaboration features. So now we're going to go into questions that you all have been asking.
Yeah, Adam, we've got a handful of questions here. Let me take a look. Looks like we've got a question about, first one is, how do we get started? Do pilot programs make sense to get things kind of jump-started with respect to social in the enterprise?
So that question probably was asked earlier, but definitely a great question. So I think pilot programs are great. I think also, you know, look at your system base, and the reality is, if you're Microsoft-based, look at what tools are going to work with it. If you're Google Docs-based, look what tools will work with that. And don't be afraid to have two pilots going on. Mm-hmm. Yes, I love spending other people's money, I admit it, but you can try Google, you can try Yammer for free, and if you have a group of understanding people, they'll know that they might have to change. Mm-hmm. So I think it's great to be able to do multiple pilots, mm-hmm. But have written down those return metrics. Right. Be able to say beforehand what you were wanted to expect, and afterwards what you wanted to expect. And it might be something like a questionnaire. We're talking about happiness. Mm-hmm. Gartner has some great questionnaires that you can just purchase and use and do it before and after. Right. So I think in anything it would be best to have a metric around it. Okay.
Just looking through the list here, looks like we have a question. Are execs are afraid of social? How do we make the case with them?
Well, your execs should be afraid of social because you'll probably make them participate with it. So how do you make the case for social? That's kind of interesting. So, you have the pilot, you show those metrics. They're really, as trite as it sounds, there is an expectation now. We are really being trained by our everyday life. I would argue that there will never be a Facebook for the enterprise, because with Facebook, you have your context. You understand where you are at all times. So that's where having a very focused, specific need with a specific group or community that then has the different levels of unstructured features applied to it, that you would really see it blossom. And with those metrics, you'd be able to put the return on investment there too. And again, going back to, I think, the pilot question, look at the tool set that you already have and see what might be included with it. I think that's one of the amazing things with Office 365. Even though it's cloud, which is a benefit to an exec also, but how Microsoft is intertwining all of their different tool set into each other, and companies like Salesforce. Once you're already using that, now you have Chatter and even intranet platforms on Force.com, you're really able to take advantage. And what that enhances, and you wrote it down for me, so I'll skip to another question, which is adoption. Mm-hmm. So why I keep saying look at your tool set is because you won't have to train your users on how to use the basic functionality. Because the way Salesforce.com does something and the way Microsoft CRM does something, they're just a little bit different. And if you don't have to go over that hurdle, then you can get much more user adoption. And again, I think just to answer this question too, user adoption is about, it starts with that team. It starts about having the knowledge of what the purpose of this tool is. I think it's very important to have your own company spectrum and say what is what tool used for, and have knowledgeable people able to answer that. And then have an advocate be able to go around and say, oh, hey, did you know, I'll do it again, Bob is using this tool there, and Rick is using that tool there. Why don't you, talk to those two people how it's making the benefit? The most growth I've seen with structured and unstructured collaboration is when you get the actual business users to talk to each other. So I would definitely have those user groups, have newsfeed jams, and I think that will create a lot of great movement towards the adoption of these systems. And again, if I didn't say it already, that's to start small with a specific need. And I know there's argument that the return on investment happens at the large, but you need those business users, or I highly recommend. But what I've seen is you need those business users to be behind it and communicating in the language of the other users to be able to really broaden it and apply specifically to the other groups.
Great. Thanks. So it looks like we're bumping up to the top of the hour. Again, thank everyone for attending today. Just a couple of things to think about in terms of follow-up. We are offering a free 2-hour social analysis workshop. So we will commit a couple of hours of our time to drill down on a lot of the issues that Adam raised today. And with the big takeaway there is how do you get started? So we can kind of help accelerate that process. So Adam's email is there, so please feel free to ping him on that. And the other thing is we're having a digital workplace webinar on Thursday, November 7th from 11 to 12. So keep an eye out on your inbox or just hit portalsolutions.net and to register for that. So thanks again and have a great day.